Hello, everyone. My name is Henrietta. I am the founder of House of the Radiant Rose, and I am a life coach and style alignment guide. And today I have one of my great friends, Dinesha, on this channel with me because I really wanted to have a conversation about her being a therapist and me being a life coach and how, you can have both dynamics work for anyone. So, I'll have her, give a little background about herself.
Got you. Well, thanks for having me on. My name is Dinesha Brooks, and I am a therapist. Have been a therapist for about 4 or 5 years at this point. And yeah, I primarily work with Black women for a company called Imara Counseling. We're based out of Laurel, Maryland, but do a lot of teletherapy. And so ultimately, I see a lot of clients who are dealing with anxiety, depression, we're processing grief and trauma and things of that nature. And so hopefully, I can be very helpful with this podcast.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So, and going to a lot of events, a lot of the conversations that I've recently been hearing people have is, so does a life coach, act as a therapist? Like, what exactly is the difference between a life coach and a therapist? And I was like, I have a therapist as a friend. So let's just have a conversation just to kind of, help people become more aware of the differences and, a couple of similarities as well, so that people can effectively pick the right option for them. So I just wanted us to have a conversation just to, help women out with certain things that they might be experiencing. And I feel like we're both in the wellness space, so we can probably, offer some guidance to anyone that have, some things going on. So I have a couple of questions I'm just going to go over, and then we're both going to, of course, give our inputs. And I guess the first thing I wanted to start with is what you think your definition of a therapist is, and then what do you believe a life coach is?
Got you. Got you. To define a therapist, so I guess I would say that therapy is really the practice of holding space, right? Meaning that it is an opportunity for people to come in and really process um, their life, right? Things that have gone on in their life. And I think a lot of what we do is going back to like childhood or past experiences and really trying to understand who they are today based on that stuff.
Hmm.
And so I think we're doing a lot of the emotional processing, learning how to regulate your nervous system, and really making connections between like patterns and thought processes and things of that nature to understand who you are today in order to be able to make the changes.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I guess that's my roundabout way of trying
Yeah.
to define what that looks like. What was
Hmm.
the other part of your question?
Also kind of talk about what you believe a life coach is. So of course, I'll explain what my specific modality as a life coach is, because I think everybody has their own definition of what they do as a life coach, but
Sure.
what you think the difference is.
Absolutely. So I think, I guess going back to what I said, right? I think we are, as a therapist or as therapists in general, we are really trying to process and understand who you are in order to
Hmm.
be able to move forward. And I see life
Hmm.
coaches being the ones that are like, okay, now that you understand yourself a little bit more and understand like why you have anxiety or where these anxious thoughts come from or where these things originated, now we can put some plans and some goals into action and get it going, right? Like
Got it.
I see accountability, I see goal setting, I see more
Hmm.
action maybe than maybe
Okay.
people get out of therapy. So that's
Hmm.
kind of my thought process on it.
I know therapists are also can diagnose people. Is that something that you do as well?
Yes, yes. So we're
Hmm.
diagnosing and treating mental health conditions. So
Hmm.
yeah, especially if we're taking insurance, you have to
Hmm.
have a diagnosis in order to,
Okay.
I guess, use your insurance or whatnot. And so, yeah, we're definitely diagnosing, and we have to be licensed for that, right? And
Hmm.
so, we're either LCPCs, which are licensed clinical professional counselors, or
Hmm.
um, LMSWs, which are social workers, LCSWs.
Hmm.
I think they're also social workers, psychologists, things of that nature. And so
Okay.
we can dive into a little bit more of the clinical work, the clinical aspect of the mental health realm.
Got it. Thank you for that. So I think the main difference to me is really the diagnosing people. So life coaches cannot diagnose anybody. We don't have the credentials to do that. So to me, that's one of the biggest differences. So if I did have, a potential client that I felt like probably could use, therapy instead of life coaching because they may be looking for some kind of diagnosis, they go to therapy. At least I point them to, seeing a therapist.
Yeah.
But to me, at least for my line of work as a life coach, so I'm a spiritual life coach, it kind of sounds pretty similar to the things that you stated, but I mostly deal with conditionings and, releasing identities that, no longer serve you. So I think it's kind of just different language, but it kind of, boils down to similar things outside of, diagnosing anybody with any kind of mental, disorder. What do you think a sign is that life is asking you to pay attention to yourself or make a change?
Ooh. A sign. Ooh, I think there are lots, right? I think when people start to go numb, right? Like you're not feeling anything. You're not necessarily feeling the lows, but you're not feeling the highs either, right? I think that might be a sign that's telling you that something's going on,
Mhm.
something needs to be addressed or figured out because all the emotions are valid, right? And so yeah, the lows don't feel good, but I think they communicate and speak volumes, and so you want to be able to feel that, but you also want to be able to feel the highs of the highs too, right? Like the
Mhm.
joy, the excitement, the pleasure, right? And so when you're not experiencing that, I think that is definitely a sign. I think when your physical health starts to be impacted, or things are just not feeling right, right? Of
Mhm.
course, go to a doctor first so you can rule out anything that could be physical in nature. But sometimes there are somatic um, symptoms that show up, like headaches, nausea, heartburn, things of that nature that could be related to stress, could be related to
Mhm.
anxiety, all of that, right? Um, yeah, ultimately when you just don't feel like you're in your best self, right? Like, hey, life
Mhm.
has been good and now all of a sudden I'm tired all the time. Life has been good and now I'm like not hanging out with my friends. I'm not doing the things that I once found pleasure in. I think those are signs that hey, something's going on and it might be time to get some support, or
Right.
at least slow down and take a little inventory on myself.
I love that. I love that. I will share the same sentiments. I believe that if you finally come to awareness that you need some kind of change in your life, that usually is the biggest sign that something needs to be done. That leads to kind of the next question. Why do you think so many women wait years before seeking support?
Um, I think as women, we kind of are groomed to take care of everybody else and to kind of put ourselves on the back burner. And I think that if you are not careful enough to really pay attention to yourself and know yourself, some of these symptoms and some of these impacts can be easily missed because you're just
Mm-hmm.
on the go and you're doing and doing and doing, right? And not
Mm-hmm.
realizing like, oh, like my appetite's off, or oh, I'm having heart palpitations, right? And not
Mm-hmm.
understanding those types of things. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think one is the awareness. If you're so busy and you're not slowing down to stop and really figure yourself out, that can be missed. I also think, unfortunately, I think it's getting better, but I think there's still like some stigma around needing help. I think people see it
Mm-hmm.
sometimes as like, well, I should be able to do this by myself. I should
Mm-hmm.
be able to get over this hump. But so much of it is out of your realm of control, right? Like sometimes it's
Right.
genetics, sometimes it's what's going on in the world, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah, I think between awareness and then just sometimes that idea of asking for help being like a
Right.
weakness, I think that those
Right.
are two big reasons why people wait.
Yes, yes. Awareness is key. Without awareness, you cannot have any change. So,
Yeah,
completely agree.
yeah.
Why do you think asking for support can feel so difficult for women?
These are really good questions. I think it goes back to that weakness part. I think, or the idea of weakness, because it's certainly not weak, right? I think it takes strength to ask for help and know that something's going on, right? But I think people just kind of go by like, again, I should be able to do this by myself. I was able to do
Mhm,
X, Y, and Z. I got all these degrees. I bought my house.
mhm,
I did this. Why
mhm,
wouldn't I be able to do this part, right? But so much
mhm.
of the mental health work is about getting it out, right?
Mhm.
I think a lot of stuff has been suppressed over the years, and so sometimes you don't
Mhm.
even realize it until you start talking to somebody and
Right.
they're able to
Mhm.
like freely process, right?
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I think that's part of it. Another aspect, I think, and I find this with a good number of clients, and even with myself, right?
Mhm.
When you do start talking about this stuff and bringing it up, it can invoke like a lot of emotion, and it feels so uncomfortable, right?
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
that discomfort almost makes you want to be like, forget it. I just want to push it back down, and I don't want to do it, right? And so I think that discomfort with emotions and I think it will hold a lot. People are just going to want to hold stuff in, right? And so that's a part of like therapy, and I'm sure part of life coaching where
Mhm.
we're like, all right, we're going to tolerate these feelings so that you can
Yes.
these things, and
I
tears might come, and the things might happen, but that's a part of the process. So yeah,
Yes, yes, that's a really, really, really good one. Fear holds a lot of not just women, men also back, and I feel like you kind of just mentioned just being able to just push through that fear, not jumping from A to Z, but just pushing through it just little by little can just help you just feel safe in your body to even talk about the hard things. So I think as a therapist and a life coach, being able to just create that space for them to slowly, talk about those hard things that have brought them to wherever they currently are is huge. So, yeah, I definitely agree with everything that you just stated. Another question I had is how can someone determine which type of support might be most beneficial for them right now? So, I know we kind of, talked about the differences between therapy and life coaching. So, how do you think women can, determine what best fits them?
sure. Um, so I think it goes back to that awareness piece, right? Like I know like when I go to like my primary care provider, right, and they give us those assessments on like your anxiety and depression and whatnot, right? When you know that or when you're aware or even thinking that it might be something more clinical, right? Like
Mhm.
anxiety, depression, PTSD, or like immense stress. I think that needs to be more therapy focused, right? To kind of get that
Correct.
in check and really understand that and be able to navigate through that in order
Hmm.
to be at a more maybe emotionally stable place in order to
Hmm.
then move into the actual action part of it, right?
Correct.
I think
Correct.
sometimes people want to go straight into action, but if you don't
Hmm.
understand like your patterns and what's going on, you're going to keep repeating the same things. And so I think it's that, yeah, like if life is life and right now and things are really a challenge, and again you think some anxiety, depression, things of that nature are going on, I definitely think go to therapy first,
Yeah.
figure that out, and move into the life coaching realm.
Mhm. Completely agree. So again, as I stated before, life coaches do not diagnose anything, but we can definitely help you find like there's some women that may feel like I'm in a midlife crisis. I don't like my current reality. I think a life coach can, help you make some changes to, move into that next identity. That's definitely one of the big things that I help women do is basically they might feel like okay, so I may have everything that society thinks is normal, like a husband, children, the career, but then something is still not feeling, right in their life, or they're still maybe unhappy.
Yeah.
We can, go through the reasons why that's happening so we can move to the next step. But if you are like you stated, dealing with severe depression, severe anxiety, those types of things, I would definitely probably push you to seeing a therapist. So I completely agree.
Yeah, yeah.
Would you say one is better than the other, life coaching or therapy, or do you think both can kind of complement each other?
Yeah, I definitely think they can complement each other. I think like we just kind of talked about, I think depending on what you're going through and what's happening in your life and what your goals are, right? I think that is a determining factor on where to go, which
Yeah.
avenue to go, therapy or life coaching.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, I don't think one's better than the other. I just think it's a matter of like where are you in life, right? I saw something that said, and there's a lot of overlap, and maybe we'll talk about that at a certain point, but there's a lot
Yeah.
of overlap where I think we do a lot of the same stuff. But
Yeah.
they were saying therapy might be more like the emotional depth part, where life coaching is more of the practical movement. And I
Okay.
like that, right? I mean, I definitely think, again, I'm sure we both do both of it, you know what I mean? But I think, again, when you're going through those like severe um, mental health conditions,
Hmm.
sometimes it requires like that clinical stuff first in
Right.
order to even
Right.
be grounded enough to move into the movement part.
Completely agree. So you kind of talked about being aware of patterns. How do you think women or people in general can become aware of patterns that are no longer serving them?
Ooh, love that.
Mhm.
I think one, again, slowing down. People hate that. My clients are like, no. But it really is about like trying to slow down so that you can
Yeah.
start to recognize things about yourself.
Hmm.
Many of like our patterns and our behaviors were based around our childhood and our earlier years, and we've learned to function in them. But that doesn't mean that they're the most appropriate for us right now. And so
Hmm.
a lot of the stuff we do is just automatic. We're not even thinking about it, right? Almost like breathing. But
Right.
ultimately, like if you were to sit and journal a little bit more, maybe you start recognizing, like, you know what, every Friday my mood is like this, but every Sunday my mood is like this. Like, what is that
Hmm.
about? Um, or even just take an inventory, right? Like there's lots of apps that are out here where you don't necessarily have to journal per se,
Right.
but you're paying attention to like the physical sensations in your body. You're paying attention to your mood. You're paying attention to different environments, right? I think until you can slow down and really do that, it's really
Hmm.
hard to become aware of those patterns. Um, yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
I feel like it's everything that you stated, but I feel like it's just really simple. If you just feel like your reality doesn't match who you truly are on the inside, I think that's the one of the best ways to kind of notice that, okay, something is probably missing. I don't like to use the word unhappy because or being happy, I feel like happy is an emotion that comes and goes. So maybe peace. If you feel like I don't have you don't have peace in your life, or you just
Mhm.
feel like something just there's some kind of missing alignment somewhere between what you're seeing in your reality and who you truly believe that you are.
Mhm.
I think that's like a wake up call. Okay, something has to probably change. And one thing I want people to know is that you can change it. Like it's possible. You're not stuck in whatever situation you think you're stuck in. Um, but yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. Just knowing that there's a disconnect between who you are on the inside and your current reality.
Yep. Yep.
Mhm,
Yep. No, that's
mhm,
good.
mhm. What are some small changes that women can make today that can create a meaningful shift over time?
Some small changes. First and foremost, I am one of those people that wholeheartedly believe in the whole mind body connection. So, right, I think one, making sure that your sleep is good and quality sleep, right? And so again, knowing yourself, knowing, hey, do I need 8 to 9 hours of sleep? Maybe I need 10. But really trying to prioritize that. I think the food part, being cognizant of what you're eating. Like I know protein is very helpful for the brain, and
Mhm,
things in like a lot of sugar and stuff can be counter productive or
mhm,
counteract,
mhm,
cause issues. And
mhm,
so, yeah, and then I think the other part is movement, right? Where, again, I think just for the fact of um, taking care of everybody, right? Partners and kids and work and all this stuff. Sometimes the exercise part goes to the back burner,
mhm,
but movement is definitely helpful. It gets those endorphins flowing.
mhm.
Definitely needed. So I think those are small things, and they don't have to be these big changes, right? Like you don't need to go to a gym. You can just go outside for a walk for 10, 15 minutes, and Be by yourself. Put the phone down. Don't be on social media. Just giving yourself some time to breathe, relax, be by yourself, be with your thoughts. I think that things of those nature are helpful. Outside of that, what I mentioned, I think journaling. I think that is definitely helpful with processing and just trying to understand yourself a bit. And
Yeah.
then my favorite that a lot of people are not a fan of is like the breath work, the mindfulness work. Sitting still and just being in your thoughts a little bit, sitting still and breathing, sitting still and doing grounding activities. They help to regulate the nervous system, and a lot of how we show up has to do with our nervous system. So if you're constantly in what is like fight or flight, you might be on edge all the time and not realizing like, hey, it's my nervous system that's impacting like this
Hmm.
relationship or how I show up at work and things of that nature. And so um, yeah, I think those are small things that can be helpful and things that you can easily like start,
Yeah.
at any time.
You mentioned everything. You kind of mentioned it all. For me, everything that you stated, breath work, journaling, for me, meditation is huge. Just being able to just go still and just not necessarily like still your thoughts, but just being aware of your thoughts, is huge for me. Um, you can also mention this, but I think again, not going from A to Z, just knowing that even just taking a 5 minute walk, it's okay. That's something. For me, sometimes I don't feel like working out for a whole hour. But just knowing that even those small little changes can compound into big changes. Sometimes mentally you don't see it, but it actually does, work where you just start small and eventually it could get bigger. So just knowing that even the small change could eventually lead to something bigger is something that I think women should be more aware of and be okay with it. Like even if you just do that 5 minute walk. That's good. That's progress. So, yeah, I think everything that you stated was great. All right. So, the last question I have for you is if a woman listening today can take away only one thing from this conversation, what would you want her to remember about her ability to change her life?
One thing, I really think it's what you just said, right? It is those small changes that will lead to bigger, more maybe visible changes over time, right? I think sometimes, again, we think we have to do the most, right? Like when people hear self care, they're like, oh, yeah, I'll go get a massage, I'll go on the vacation. And I'm like, it's not just that, right? It's in your everyday life, the way that you're caring for yourself, the way that you speak to yourself, the way that you just respond to who you are, what you need, and what you believe, and what who you are in this world that is going to make these changes, right? And so
Right.
I think if we can normalize the fact that these changes are going to be small and they may not always feel so powerful in the moment, but by doing them on a more consistent basis,
Right.
that eventually these bigger changes feel more tangible and possible. But yeah, I just really think it's the small things that we just overlook, especially if a lot of go-getter type of women out here, and we're used to success and perfection and all those things that we've been kind of accustomed to and grown to believe is necessary.
Right.
But it really is in those small changes that make a big
Mm-hmm.
difference.
I agree. I agree. Um,
What would
I
you
think
say?
just being I would just say just being aware, like increasing your awareness. You kind of touched on this a little bit, just not always being on autopilot, just pausing before you react, pausing before you pretty much make most decisions in your life, and just being more aware so that you're just living consciously and not unconsciously. I think we make a lot of decisions you kind of stated this a little bit, but because of things that we may have gone through as a child and we've kind of brought into our adulthood, and we may not even be aware that we are living still as a child in an adult's body. So just being more aware of your patterns, everything we kind of just touched on, I think can just help you transform your life.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely agree.
Mm-hmm. All right, is there anything else you want to add?
Not that I can think of in the moment. Like I said, hopefully we'll have a private practice in the works in the next few
Yes,
months or
yes.
so. So, I'll give you my little plug for that when it comes. But yeah, no, I if it was up to me, everybody would be having some level of therapy or life coaching or something, just because there's so much value in being able to be yourself in a space and have someone witness it with you and walk you through it. And not even always from a place of like an expert, right? Because that's not who we are, right? Each person is their own expert, but it's just someone that is like a safe space
Mhm.
on your side and there for you, right? And so though they might challenge you and say, hey, maybe this ain't the right way to think about this, you know it's coming from a loving place, a caring place, at the core
Mhm.
of it. And so just my little plug, go get some support if you need it. But yeah, no, I think it's helpful and necessary, especially in the world that we live in today.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much, Dinesha, for joining this video. I appreciate you. Of
Thanks for having me.
course.